Welcome to New England Lacrosse Journal's Chasing the Gold podcast, your destination for all things lacrosse. I'm your host, Kyle Devitt. Alongside me, Jack Piatelli. We're back, baby.
Nice to have you back. We missed you. Glad you're feeling better. It's the holiday season. It's the giving season. Merry Christmas. I got a little gift for you.
Oh my God.
I got you a coffee mug. It's the Grinch that stole Christmas coffee mug. I thought you would really enjoy that. So every time you have a coffee, you can think of me. And
oh my God.
And you're the Grinch. There you go.
How did you hide this the whole time? That's incredible. Oh my God. This is incredible. For people listening and people watching on YouTube, I was born on Christmas. I am a Grinch. So this is a great gift. I got you a book.
You did. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to reading it.
Gladwell book. But you know, you're not watching this podcast or listening for us to make jokes because we're not all that funny. You're here to learn about lacrosse and coaches all around the country. And we have a good one for you today. We have Siena head coach Liam Gleason. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing great, guys. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Coach, I remember playing Siena when I was at Springfield a number of years ago. We didn't have any schools to play, but Siena was one of them. The program's been around for a long time. They've had some success over the years. How are things looking this fall, and what are your expectations going forward in the spring?
You know, this year's squad has a lot of potential. Starts with the senior class, a lot of great leaders, guys that have been playing pretty much for 4 years straight, between two of my midfielders and two of my defenders that I expect to be big time contributors. This is a group that's hungry. I mean, it took us a while to get to where we wanted to be. And last year that was competing for a MAAC championship. We went down to Manhattan and won a semifinal game and had the opportunity to compete against Marist in the championship game. And, you know, we fell short, but we certainly recognized, you know, how much work and how hard it is to get to that game. And that's ultimately our goal. So this year, you know, same thing. It's, you know, to get to that game and put ourselves in a spot to compete for a MAAC championship.
Coach, you're playing in the MAAC, which I think a lot of people in New England have a renewed interest in. Yeah. Thanks to the new members of the MAAC. What's your approach to teams coming in that maybe you haven't played before or that you're looking forward to play in 2024 versus last year?
It's actually, it doesn't change much. It's exciting. You know, at first I was a little upset. I was looking forward to getting to, we were going to be a 7-team conference. Before Sacred Heart and MAAC came in, and I was excited about that because that gave us some more opportunities for out of conference games. But at the same time, now you look at just some of the shakeup and how things are going. I'd certainly rather be in a league that's being proactive and trying to increase membership because of how challenging it is right now with some of this conference switch. But, you know, MAAC team we haven't competed against. I know Mike Morgan's a great coach. He does a great job there. I think they bring some great depth to our conference. Sacred Heart coming in, you know, they've been in our conference as an affiliate the last 2 years. So they're nothing new to us. Or actually, sorry, last year was their first year, but they're a great school, great addition, great campus. And I think it makes the MAAC a much stronger conference. This is probably the strongest MAAC has ever been in its history. I think it's always been a competitive conference, but now you really got some teams that I think can make some noise outside of the conference also. Yeah,
I think, you know, Quinnipiac being there for a long time, I know just covering college and doing preseason and things like that, it was like mapping out how many New England colleges were in each conference and just seeing Quinnipiac by itself, you know, and now it's three New England teams to pay attention to. I think that, you know, you're going to get a lot more attention just by virtue of being around those from players in Massachusetts. I mean, you have a couple on your roster. I know Caden Paddleford is an excellent player. He's a sophomore this year?
Yes, and he came over from Vermont, and he's done a great job, you know, getting acclimated to our system. Took him a little bit with recovering from an injury, but he's done a great job, and he's definitely someone I expect to contribute.
A lot of the guys on your team are from the New York area. I think that kind of lends itself, obviously, geographically to where you guys are. How heavily do you compete with teams to recruit players from that region? Because I think there's a ton of competition for talent in that area?
Yeah, we do a good job attracting kids from downstate and Long Island and Westchester. Being a Long Island guy, I do a lot of recruiting down there. My assistant coach Cox is a local guy from the Capital District, and my other assistant Derek Eccles is from Syracuse. So we naturally, just where we're from is New York, and it's kind of an attractive school to a lot of people downstate, just because it being a private school that's only about 3 hours north of downstate. So, for us, we do run into some competition a lot in state with schools like Binghamton, sometimes LIU, but we definitely tried to reach out, and over the last 2 years, I think we've had a bigger net casted into the New England area, watching, some of the other teams from there. And we've been pulling maybe 1 or 2 guys each year, compared to, New York, which is probably more of, 6 to 7, maybe even 8 to 9 guys per class. It's just naturally a good fit for a lot of the guys we're looking at downstate. But, we certainly recognize all the talent in Massachusetts and Connecticut and New Hampshire. So, we even recruiting somebody from Maine this past year. And so it's an area doesn't make up a huge part of our team, but it's certainly an area we respect a lot and try to recruit at.
Coach, you played for Scott Marr at University of Albany. You also coached under him. You also coached under Brian Breck. 2 very well-respected coaches in the industry. That experience allowed you to move on to Siena. What kind of influence did they have for you to become the coach you are today?
Well, I wouldn't be coaching if it wasn't for Brian Brecht. I could say that about Scott too, because Scott really made me fall in love with lacrosse as I played for him. But I was given the opportunity to coach by Brian right out of college, and I didn't expect that route when I was kind of planning my career. I didn't think college coaching was really in the cards for me, but I got the opportunity and made very little money and had to work really hard under Brian, which really instilled, I think, a work ethic. And I could never beat Coach Brecht into the office or leave later than him. He was a workhorse, which is, why he's at where he's at today. So I really learned a lot on how to prioritize what's important and make sure that you're doing all the little things at a high level. And then for Scotty, he's, he loves the game, he loves life, and he brings that out of his players. And I think his assistant coaches also. So for working under him, it was learning how to build relationships with the players, show them how much you care. And in turn, when you build those relationships, you're able to get a little bit more out of them. So I learned a lot from both of them. I credit both of them with so much that I've learned and who I am today.
I think, one of the things that Coach Brecht, I think, is almost famous for now is the transfer portal. How do you approach that? I noticed you had a lot of graduate students on your roster last year. What is your opinion on it? How much of your team do you think you can rely on for the portal? Does it help you guys? Does it hurt you guys? What's your overall impression of it?
So at first, when it first came into existence, I was a little hesitant on it because we were still working on building the culture to the spot I wanted it to be, where I can bring in a player and they could fit that seamlessly because of how strong the culture is. And I think that's something that's very important when you're looking at the transfer portal and you're looking to bring somebody in, maybe who's a junior or a sophomore, even a senior year or a 5th year. How are they going to affect your team? Are they going to fit? Is your team in a spot that is strong enough to accept somebody that maybe is going to push a few guys down a depth chart? So I wanted to make sure we were in a good spot. And I believe last year was where we probably made the biggest impact in the portal by bringing in 2 players. One, actually a Springfield guy, local over here, but Springfield guy, Zach Schutte, who had an excellent year for us. He was a great player at Springfield, but then for him to come over to Siena and translate to the D1 level the way he did, I thought was awesome. And we brought in another D3 guy from SUNY Brockport in Rocco Santillo. So for us, it was finding the right fit. And sometimes I think I'm one of the schools that really looks at those D2, D3 guys in the portal too. And I think sometimes you get those guys, they come in, they got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. They want to prove they could play at the D1 level.
Sure.
That was my experience with them. But, this past season, we brought in two guys, Caden Paddleford, as you mentioned, from Vermont, and Connor Huffnagel from Hofstra. And both of them have done a great job seamlessly fitting into our culture, which is the biggest, like I said, the biggest part is when you're looking at the portal, how is this guy, does he have skill? Great. But is he going to come in and fit with what you're trying to do and get along with the guys? So we don't really have a target every year. There certainly is some needs at the end of the year, and we're like, okay, well, you know what, we'll use a little more depth at this position. Let's see what's in the portal. But I still try to recruit, we want to have a roster around 48, 49 guys. So we really try to make each class 12 guys if we can. We are fortunate to get a couple guys getting an extra year next year. But that's kind of starting to run out of those COVID extra years.
Yeah, thank God it's starting to run out, because I'm getting tired of trying to track where all these players are going and coming and so on and so forth. But my question is, I think it's very important, to build that culture. Like you said, it's got to be very difficult for some of these programs that bring in, let's say, 5 or 10 guys the last couple of years to have any type of culture. Because if you're the best player on the field, right, talent-wise, doesn't mean you're going to fit into our culture and be a good teammate.
Exactly. I think that's so important. Every coach, you hear the word culture, but it's probably the most important part of any program. What is going to be the work ethic? What are the standards when I'm not around? What is expected of you on and off the field? What's your what do we expect of you? As a person, what's the character expectation? And I think that takes some time to really, for us, it took time I came in 2018, and I really think right now is where we're probably the strongest we've been with our culture. And it's you get growing pains, right? We had some tough seasons. We had, some guys that it didn't work out for us. But when you get your culture in a good spot, I think that's where you're more willing to look at the portal and address, different needs you might have versus going out through the recruiting cycles.
Yeah, just looking at your past record, this is last season was your first winning record. You had like you said, you had a tough time getting guys in there. I think when we see coaches that are, with a school that aren't with a school for like 20 years or something like that, we kind of look at it and go, okay, well, give them a couple of years. It's like a startup business, right? Like you get 3 years of runway, you bring your guys in, right, and you kind of see if your system works. It would appear, that you've kind of passed that test going into the back 9-7, right? Like that's a winning record. That's progress compared to the last seasons. How do you gauge the ceiling of success for your team each season? Like, do you have a team? You obviously have team goals. Do you want to just, last year you made the MAAC tournament, you made the championship game. Is that just, we're going to do that again, we're going to get to the NCAA tournament, and that's what it's going to be? Or do you have more, regimented things that you're building towards?
The ultimate goal doesn't change. And for us, our ultimate goal is to win a MAAC championship each year, right? But we the old adage, we're going to take it one game at a time. We're going to address that our ultimate goal is to compete for a MAAC championship. But we also know, how hard it is to get to that game. Even if you are, preseason 1 or 2, that doesn't mean you're going to go out there and make the MAAC championship game. So for us, it's when I first got there, the first thing we talked about was making the playoffs. The team hadn't been to the playoffs since 2014 when I got there, and we were, fortunate enough to do that 2 years ago, when we ended up losing to Bonaventure in the semifinals. But then, to get there again last year, host a game in the expanded 16 tournament, host a game at home against Sacred Heart, win that, then get to the semifinals, win that. Like, that was no easy task. So we're gonna say it was a successful season, but we missed our goal of a MAAC championship, which is always something that we're striving to do, is to compete for a MAAC championship and represent our conference in NCAA tournament. So I'll measure success more at the end of the year. But for us, it's really going to be, hey, we got to take care of this game to be able to play the next game. And we try to do our best out of conference to challenge ourselves when we get to conference play. So it's, there's no easy ones out there. There is no easy ones out there in Division I anymore. It's every team can compete. You see it all the time where, a team that's ranked in the 60s knocks someone off in the top 20s. It's just part of the game now.
I don't think our listeners know very much about Siena. Coach, tell us a little bit about the school, how many students, in terms of the education, what is the school's focus in terms of graduation?
Yeah, well, we've been very successful as of late. Siena's been ranked the last 3, maybe even 4 years, has been the #1 school in New York State for employment after graduation. Our big majors are really in the business department, but we have some guys in science and liberal arts, communications, criminal justice is a new major that's getting popular. But I'd say about 60, probably more like 70% of our guys on our team are within the business majors. Siena College is a Franciscan Catholic school. The religious aspect is there on campus for you if you want it, but it's really just how you want it to shape your experience. We have about 3,500 students. So it's not a super small, tiny school, but it's not a large state school where you got classrooms with 100 students or 100 plus students. Our average class size is about 24 students. We're maxed at 35. So you're never going to be in a class bigger than 35 students. So just the actual engagement at Siena, when you walk into a classroom, you're going to know your professor, they're going to know you, you're going to know your classmates. It's very challenging to not be successful if you're showing up to class at Siena, because you're automatically engaged when you get there. There's a great sense of community on campus. The student athletes root for each other. It's a special place. There's a reason. I had some success at Albany and was given an opportunity to take the next step to be a head coach. And when Siena opened up for me, it was a no brainer because of my 3 years of being an assistant coach there. When I started off, I had so much fun. We had a lot of success, and I saw something special there. And it had changed a lot since Coach Brecht and I were coaching, as far as our facilities and what we're able to offer. So for me, it was a no-brainer because it's just a special place. It really is.
Well, talk about your facilities. What new facilities are available to the athletes today?
So we have within the last 5 years, they have built a brand new training facility with a hydrotherapy center, beautiful branded hot and cold tubs, underwater treadmill, really some special equipment in there. And, being a D1 athlete, the training room isn't just for being, when you're injured, it's for taking care of your body. Right. So there's a lot of stuff in there that is what we call preventative stuff, where you get in there and you're making sure you're stretching, you're heating, you're doing stuff after practice, so you're ready to go the next day. Our weight room, we don't have football, so we're the biggest team on campus, which is nice. Our weight room is a great setup for what we need to accomplish in there. Like I said, built within the last 5 years. Our locker room has been renovated. We actually we're renovating it again and adding another couple of lockers in there. And one of the things that's really exciting is currently we play on Hickey Field with the women's lacrosse, men's soccer, and women's soccer. So we have 4 teams using one turf field, and we are actually in the process of building our lacrosse only field. So that will be a second turf field, only lacrosse lines on it, brand new, stands and bathrooms and everything. It's going to be a really nice setup. That's, in the early stages. The planning is occurring right now, and we're hoping to break ground next year. And it's looking very promising right now. So that's going to be an exciting addition to the already great facilities we have.
The second annual New England Youth Lacrosse Convention returns to Gillette Stadium on Sunday, February 4th. This year's event is presented by the Boston Cannons and powered by MAAC Youth Lacrosse. Over 40 presenters and 30 vendors covering all topics for the girls and boys youth game for town leaders, coaches, and parents. Visit maathyouthLax.org to purchase tickets. That site again, maathyouthLax.org. Once again this winter, Piatelli Lacrosse has a great way for you to stay in shape and play lacrosse this off-season. Starting in January, their indoor lacrosse program will take place at Four Kicks in Taunton. This program is open to youth and high school players of all ages, regardless of school or club affiliation. The up-tempo pace of indoor box lacrosse is an excellent way for players to learn to play faster and develop new skills that will make you more effective on the field come spring. Coaches will be provided for each game, and all players will take part in a mini clinic prior to their game to work on different box lacrosse skills. Make the most of your off-season and play some box lacrosse. For more information on Piatelli's Winter Box Lacrosse League, visit piatellilacrosse.com. That's Piatelli lacrosse.com.
Coach, we're catching you after the IMLCA coaches meetings. One of the things that came up there was the possible change in face-offs, not using a clamp, getting rid of it altogether. It seemed like for a couple days there, every face-off guy in the country was panicking. What was your take on that? And are you, I guess, I hate to ask this question, are you pro or anti face-off?
I tried to stay away from that committee when they were forming the committee on how to solve this problem, because I knew the backlash was going to be immense. Personally, I don't think it's screwing up our game in any way. I do think there's a potential. I'd like to see what are some of the different scenarios and different things that they come up with for replacing the face-off. And I don't think the face-off ultimately will be replaced. I just think they're going to look to alter it in one way. The big pushback was the actual clamp. There's a lot of coaches that believe that goes against the rules of the game, because it's actually withholding the ball in that one split second of a pinch and a pop. That's where a lot of the people against the clamp, that's the route they're taking. I think it could be an exciting change if they allowed it just a rake. I still think it's going to be one player that in a country that will be super dominant at it. I don't think it will change that aspect, but it could be exciting to see what else is out there as far as facing off. I'm not in favor of taking the face off out of the game. I think that would be terrible if they did a sixes, take the ball outside the box and then you got to clear it. I don't want to see that happen. But I would be excited to see what different options are out there if we were to take the clamp out of the game.
Yeah, I don't want to see the face-off taken out of the game either. I'd like to see a rake. I'd like to see more action from the wings, more turnovers, more ability to have fast break play. And I think it just creates more of a faster game, more exciting game with the rake. And I think if you take the face-off out, it eliminates that anticipation of what team is going to come up with the ball. How to ward the ball. I think that that's a big part of lacrosse is, winning that face-off and controlling the ball throughout play is so important. But again, if you have one dominant guy, but how many dominant guys are there in the country? Not that many. No, you can only name 3 or 4 in the pros, 3 or 4, and everyone else is about the same. So if you eliminate those guys, I don't think anybody has a problem with it.
Why are we changing lacrosse to be like everything else? Sorry for the rant. But back in it's so dumb to me. But the game was great. Take away the thing that was great. That's what separates us from basketball. And hockey has face-offs. What's the problem with hockey face-offs?
No, they still have face-offs. I know, but rake.
They have more. They have more face-offs.
Yeah.
No one's trying to replace those.
It's not a possession game, though.
I also think that, now with the shot clock, come on, that argument's a little dead too. And also we've already changed the rules so much with face-off guys that we've basically eliminated 3-minute tie-ups. I get it. 3-minute tie-ups are not good for anybody except the 2 guys grunting in there trying to get the ball out. But how many, I can count on one hand. I watch so many college games. I can count on one hand how many times a tie-up lasted more than 10 seconds this year. That's wild. The fact that we have to change it is crazy. I like asking coaches about it that were there, because I was not there, because I couldn't make the trip. But if I was there, it would have been fun. I'll tell you that. A lot
of passionate people who are in your corner also that are coaches. It was I think it was 78% of Division I head coaches voted to change the face-off, but there was some animate voices making similar arguments that you just made in the room that day. I think that a lot of the coaches take the side, though, that it should, like hockey, the guy who faces off, he's got to hit it to someone. Basketball, you got to hit it to someone. It's more of not having one player being able to take the face off and gain possession. You have to, some of the arguments were fine, keep the clamp, but the face off guy can't scoop the ball. He's got to rake it out to somebody or clamp it out and pull it out to somebody. That would keep the clamp and maybe appease some other, some coaches who think that's a part that has to be changed. But there was a lot of ideas. I mean, we had coaches saying, "Hey, let's spin the sticks around where the faces are facing each other, and now you're pulling it that way," which I think would be pretty weird and it'd be interesting to see. But there's going to be a lot of discussion. I think there's about a 15 to 16 coach committee who's talking about this, that does consist of Division 1, 2, and 3 coaches. So it'd be interesting to see what their report is, their feedback is after a couple of meetings.
Coach, if they make a change, it won't be applied until 2025. Is that correct?
Right. Nothing will be affected this season. It is the committee's job to put a proposal to the NCAA by, I believe, June 1st. And then that would be, then it's out of the coach's hands, and then it goes to the NCAA committee who might not even agree and say, no, we're just going to keep this. Like, we're not changing this again. So there's a lot of uncertainty, and I don't know if I totally understand the panic by face-off guys. It's especially with some frustration with rules changing. I still think, all the guys that coach to face off, it's still going to be, whatever the change is, it's still going to be something that you got to work at. You got to get coached at. You got to practice. So I don't think it's, face off guys are still going to exist. It might be a little different, but it's not going to take the position away.
Well, I think what I like about it, you're going to have more options. You might have your best lacrosse player facing off if it's a rake, most athletic, fast, best ground ball guy. So again, it's I think the coaches are going to have more options and allow, more players to get on the field.
Yeah.
We talked about face-offs too much. Coach, you're actually catching me the day after I submitted D2 and D3 All-Americans to USA Lacrosse Magazine. And that process was wildly time-consuming, arduous, hard, all that stuff. Part of that was talking to coaches and seeing their evaluation of players, and making those lists is it's an impossible task. Someone's always going to be upset. I'm curious, you talked about bringing in some D3 players earlier. How do you evaluate whether or not they can play and contribute to your team? Because I think a lot of D3 players, top level players, the NESCAC specifically, produces D1 players. They are D1 players basically playing in D3. How do you pick what's right for your team other than personality and culture? Like what physical things are you looking for? Game IQ? What are some of the attributes that you really need to hone in on before you bring that kid into your squad?
The 2 guys I mentioned before that we brought in last year, one, it was pretty easy to see. I think Zach Schutte was like 60 and 60. So I was like, okay, This kid's got great numbers. He could play the game. And then Rocco Santo, I believe he was the SUNYAC Player of the Year. So, for me to see, okay, wow, look at the success these guys having with production. That was pretty obvious. But then it was watching some of their film, talking to their coaches, how did he do his freshman year? Was he, if he wasn't playing, how did he handle that? Because that's a big part too, is when you're bringing someone in from the transfer portal, even if they're from a lower division, they're coming here because they're expecting to make a difference or, compete on game day. Especially if those guys were one and done. So if they came here, they didn't play last year, that would be pretty disappointing. I imagine that they came and for 1 year didn't even step on the field. So you want to make sure, one, that, well, and again, nothing's guaranteed, right? I'm not recruiting anybody out of the portal saying, hey, you're going to come here and you're going to play. You still got to, it's best players play, but you got to make sure that you think they can physically handle it. They got the IQ to handle it. Were they playing competitive, Division 3, Division 2 lacrosse, or, were they in a very weak league so their numbers are inflated? And then obviously you already said, besides it, but I'm talking to the coaches and asking them about how they were in the locker room. And, there's some players out there that, maybe had 120 points, but the coach doesn't want to sign up for them for a 5th year. So I don't want to either, so.
Yeah, you're not going to bring a guy in, that's going to struggle on the field or not have an opportunity to play. If you're going to take someone from the portal, you want to at least have a chance of him contributing and make your team better, obviously. And like you said, there's no guarantees.
Right. This is the best test year too for high level D3 players contributing at D1 teams. You know, Jack Boyden at Virginia, how much is he going to play? Even, you know, struggling to remember the name of the defensive player for Union, Jake Titus, I think. Is that Cuse? Is that going to translate? You know, like some of these guys are going to fill very specific roles for these high level teams in D1. And I think how they do is going to impact how many coaches are going to go, all right, well, I look at that guy, right? Like got to start looking at D2 and D3 guys. And you know, I like that. Obviously we're D3 guys. We love that. Right. Yeah. And I coached a D2 for 2 years as well. So I think there's just a lot of talent out there, and, you know, it's great.
Well, more than ever. I mean, the talent nowadays, you know, we bring in, Union usually in the fall for like a second team in our scrimmages, and you can see, I mean, there's great athletes there. I think one year we were walking down the line and I think they had like 10 more guys over 6 foot than we did. You know, I'm like, oh, these guys are big, you know. So yeah. There's depth everywhere, and I think you're seeing that even in the recruiting process, how late some guys are still going, because you're like, oh, look at this kid, I still got room for a 24. I'll go now. And so I think there's a lot out there. There's a lot out there. It's on each coach to evaluate who's going to be the best fit for their program. But I do think there's enough good players out there for each team to be successful.
Well, if you're a very good player and you go to a Division II or III program and you start as a freshman, you start your freshman year and your sophomore, and you get a lot of playing time, you're developing as a player, and it gives you an opportunity to maybe play at the next level, where if you go to a Division I program, you might not see the field to your junior or senior year. So from a recruiting standpoint, Coach, you know, you have an opportunity to see if these guys actually competed at the college level, regardless of what division it is.
Right. And that matters. That's a big deal.
Right. Yeah. So talk a little bit about your recruiting process, how you recruit your players, how involved are you in the recruiting process and your assistant coaches, and what do you look for in a player, not only a skill set, but character?
Yeah. Well, we do it in a way that we don't have a recruiting coordinator. Not one of my assistants or myself are the one guy running the show. We all are out there on the road together. We're always looking for multiple evaluations. We'll never take a kid just on film. But for us, it's finding, you know, where are we drawing from? Well, what schools are we attracted to Siena? You know, when I first got to Siena, there was a lot of a lot of Bergen County, New Jersey players and on the roster. And through our recruiting process, we didn't have the same success in that area, you know, but we also had a lot more success on Long Island. And so I think it's, you know, where you're looking, who you're attractive to is up to, you know, each coach's eyes, right? I think sometimes you're watching a player and you're like, that kid, yeah, he's pretty good. Maybe he could play for me. And then you look at him and he's going to an ACC school and you're like, okay, you know, they see something maybe I don't see right now.
Right.
So for us, it's identifying, you know, and again, for us, you know, being at Siena MAAC school, we're really not bringing in 5-star, 4-star guys that often, right? That would be a challenge for us. So for us, maybe we're looking for guys sometimes that show a lot of potential, and we can get in there and then turn them into, you know, a 4-star guy. So we're looking for guys that have a lot of potential. I also attribute a lot of that stuff with potential to multi-sport athletes. I love basketball players. I think basketball players translate great at the next level. Their hip work, their understanding on how to guard somebody without a stick in your hand, how to get around a pick, how to play a pick. I mean, it's your communication. So I like looking for multi-sport athletes, and like I said, we identify, you know, certain areas. Syracuse, we do pretty well. Downstate, locally for sure, and we've been branching out to New England a lot more in the last probably about 4 years in looking at some of those teams, and we're starting to find some success there now.
Now, are you finished with your 25 class? You're still working on your 25 class?
No, we have 4 25s committed. We're basically right on track to where we usually are. I assume we'll probably have another 2 guys in the next month here. but we're usually about 6 to 7 guys before our season starts. And then we finish out the class in the summer. And I'm a big fan of that. I think it's crazy. And I get it when you're at the highest of the high level and you're able to fill your class of 5-star, 4-star guys in 3 weeks in September. I think there's only a few schools out there that are doing that. I think it's crazy though when I see some schools that are a little bit below that level and they have 12 guys committed by October 5th. It's like, what are you doing? There's going to be better guys out there still. There's a lot of players that develop through their junior year.
Those guys also aren't going to stay. You don't know. They're not guaranteed.
Right.
Early.
Well, I mean, it's
that's such a great message to the parents because I talk to parents and players all the time about recruiting, and I was talking to a parent the other day, and he signed his son up for this travel all-star team. He's in the 8th grade, and he got some advice from someone saying that he has to get exposure in the 8th grade. I'm like, forget the exposure. Just control what you can control. Keep getting, work on your stick skills. He has no left, get bigger, stronger, faster, and the whole 9 yards. But you've only got 4 committed at the 25 level, right? Yes. So many kids and parents think that September 1 date is signing day for everybody. And what they don't understand is it's the first day where you can communicate with the players, right? The juniors, just the juniors. So there's such a great misconception out there, and we're working on trying to fix it, and having coaches on like you, really help us a lot, because it's music to my ears here, and you only have 4 25s, right? Because you probably even haven't started watching 26s. We go to a tournament, and I had parents asking me why there weren't any coaches watching the 27s. Forget about it. If they watched you, they wouldn't remember you anyways.
No, and you're going to change a bunch. When we got rid of the early recruiting a couple of years back, that was, and like I said, even with the current rules where we don't call this early recruiting anymore, but I'm a big believer. Some of the best kids we get in our class are guys we're getting in July or August, going into their senior year, and they're the guys that were maybe the number 11 or 12 in the class, but they end up being like number 1 on the depth chart when they get to school. It's and I would say, I mean, I'm glad you guys are communicating that to everyone, because I would say there's at least 50%, maybe 60% of Division I that are more like us.
Yep.
That are still going to be recruiting heavily 25s through August. Can you look on the board? There's, I think, a 24 just went to a Division I school recently. Like, it's, everybody has their own philosophy. To me, I think it wouldn't be the right decision for our program if we filled up our 25s by December. And then when I say only at 4, we've only put 5 offers out there. It's not like we got 10 offers denied by people. We're specifically taking our time and finding the guys we want, and we've gotten 1 no so far. We've got a couple of guys that we're still waiting to put offers in their hands as they go through the process, but it's not like we're striking out all over the place, and that's why we have 4 kids. It's on purpose, and it's the way we like to recruit.
Are most of your recruits that you bring in, is Siena in most cases their number 1 choice?
Well, I mean, it's always going to be. I would hope so, right? That's why they decided to accept that offer. That's our goal always, right? Is to, I tell guys, I'm also not a deadline guy. There's a lot of coaches out there that they'll put an offer on the table and say, hey, here's an offer. I need to know, in a week, or I need to know by Tuesday or whatever it is. I can't stand that. To me, like, if that's the only way I'm going to get you to commit, then you don't really want to be here. I want a guy that's
I couldn't agree more with that. I couldn't agree. I had a parent call me up once and said, we have 2 weeks to make a decision. I said, you have as long as you want to make a decision.
Right.
As long as you want. If they really want you, go ahead, coach. They're gonna wait for you.
Right. I'll get into that situation where it's going to be like July, or August, and we got 1 midi spot left, and like, we want this kid, but we have this other kid on the back burner. Then then it's a little bit like, hey, this is the situation. I need you to kind of make a decision soon here, because we want you to be the guy. But if you go somewhere else, we want to make sure we're doing what's right by the program. But to me, it's like, I tell every kid when they leave the office, I'm like, when you're ready, when you say, hey, I want to go to Siena, I want to compete for a MAAC championship, I want to play for Coach Gleason, I want to be a part of that, call me back up, and then we're going to put an offer in your hands. And that's usually it's been successful for us. I mean, I also, we've lost out the kids that have been deadlined, or lost kids to schools that have deadlined them, which is a little frustrating at times, because they're making that decision before they can even see your campus because of the pressure put on them.
Right.
But I'm not going to change the way I do things.
Yeah, that's got to be a little frustrating for you, but you got to stick to what you do. It's like, I'm in a business, and if you worry about what everyone else is doing, you're going to lose focus on what you're doing, and you got to stick to, what you believe in.
Right.
But that's what the recruits are doing too. So Coach, I helped coach high school at a very small school in New Hampshire, and I had a kid. He plays Tomahawks, and every time a kid commits to a school, he goes, "Coach, how good is this school?" I get a text immediately. I'm like, it's good for him. What do you want me to say? And he's like, "Oh, I can't wait till I start getting some offers." And I was like, no, that's not how we do this. You work hard, you go play hard, coaches contact you,
study hard.
And he's a smart kid. I'm not worried about that with him, but him specifically, he's so worried about what everyone else is doing, right, that I'm just like, you need to focus on school, you need to focus on family life, and you need to focus on lacrosse after that. Like, you can't have that be the one thing. It's like, I'm going to go D1. I'm going to go D2. I'm going to go high level D3. I'm like, okay, man, but you need to go through a lot of steps. You can't think 3 years ahead.
No,
it's crazy. And
it is.
I think it's more common than ever. I don't know how.
Social media.
It is. And it is. Because the kids, because last night, this happened last night. I was scrolling on Instagram and I see a kid commits. I'm like, how long till he texts me? My phone, immediate text. Because I got there right when the story came up, and I was like, okay, we're having the conversation. What is your take on that in your position versus what you have to deal with parents and recruits?
I think that's a life lesson that you need to learn, like, now, right? And I think that carries over to even when you get to college. If you're on it looking at the depth chart and you're like, well, I'm number 6, but I'm better than 5 and 4. I do this better than you. If you're concerned about what they're doing and not focusing on what you control to make yourself climb the depth chart, it's never about the person in front of you. It's about what you need to do to move up. And that has to do with the same thing with recruiting and all that. You got to learn the life lesson is focus on the things that make you a better person, surround yourself with people that make you a better person, and then things are going to work out the right way. But you can't go, is that school good, or comparing yourself to another player that commits somewhere. That's not going to do you any good, and it's only going to hurt you. And it's one of those ones that I think a lot of players have to learn, especially nowadays. At the Division I level, I see it, and it's happening more and more now. A freshman comes in, and yes, they were, the best player in our team, but so was their class, right? Everybody was the best player in their team usually when they're going to play college lacrosse, right? And you have a certain expectation of playing time, and you have to understand that nothing's given to you. So what you need to do is focus on being the best player, learn the offense, learn the defense, learn what the coach expectations are, and that's how you're going to get on the field. But just because you were a high school All-American, you're not going to play just because of that, right? So it's not what, no one cares what you did in high school. You're in college now. Let's see what you can do. Last question for you, Coach. This really frustrates me. I was at the IMCLA tournament, where the convention was, and there were a number of teams that players didn't show up. They were 25s because they were already committed. They didn't go down and play. They originally signed up to play in the tournament, and they said, well, we just got committed. Now we don't, we're not going to play. I think it's the biggest mistake if you made the commitment to play on this team. But these players now, they get committed, and I don't have to play anymore. I don't have to do this anymore. It's the beginning. It's the starting line. You should be out there playing and developing. Absolutely. I mean, that's something that I usually communicate to any kid that commits to me after the fact of saying, hey, we're happy on board. Now you got to fulfill your end of the bargain, right? You got to work hard. You got to keep striving for the potential that we see in you as coaches. But yeah, that is frustrating, especially when a player maybe is a key player on a team and maybe helps other players look better because he can facilitate the ball or something like that. I mean, that's not helping out your teammates either, right?
No, it's a cop out. You're letting your teammates down.
Absolutely.
Yep. Coach, we're out of time, but we want to thank you so much for joining us, and wish you the best of luck this season in the MAAC. Get some action.
Let's go, guys. Thank you so much for having me on. It was great to have an opportunity to talk to you.
Hey, Glenn, thank you very much. Well done. Very nice job. Thank you. Hope to see you at a Firewolves game.
That's right. All right. We'll see you soon.
All right. Take care.
Happy holidays.
You too. Hope Santa's good to me.
All right. Thanks again for listening to New England Lacrosse Journal's Chasing the Goal podcast. For Jack Piatelli, I'm Kyle Devitt. See you next time.